Thank you and welcome to the FDCC. Dan Kohane is our guest today. Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. I'm in practice in Buffalo, New York, with a practice throughout New York State. I've been practicing for 40 years. I'm a former president of the Federation of Defense and Corporate Counsel, and I've been trying my whole career to stay up to date with technology.
And doing a pretty good job of it from what I can tell based on our pre-interview discussion. So Dan, tell us a little bit about how you've had to adapt your practice and how you practice law in this era of COVID-19.
Well, it's been a shock to the system to some extent. As I said, we've tried to stay up to date with technology, but things have changed. We have our coverage team, which I coordinate, is 17 lawyers around the state in Connecticut and New Jersey. We're now meeting by Zoom conference and meetings of one electronic platform or another. We're now arguing matters in court, federal court, by telephone or video conference. Last week, I argued an appeal before the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Normally, I would have traveled to New York City for that, where the court sits. Instead, it was by telephone. But I think the courts are adjusting to it as we are, and that's a major difference. We're also, of course, we're fortunate that we have access to our files, our file materials through our document management system.
Sure.
So now we're virtually paperless. I can access all matters through my system. We can pull them up. We can respond to pleadings. We can draw motions. We can do our research. We can access insurance policies. We can draft coverage letters or whatever we have to do from the comfort of our own home.
Well, Dan, it sounds like both your firm as well as the courts are adapting fairly quickly to a situation that's been on the move rapidly. How has this changed the practice of law forever? What are the things that we're never going to go back to that have been the norm for you for 40 years?
Number one, I think video conferencing will become the norm rather than the exception. I think there'll be less travel as a result. We spent a lot of time on airplanes traveling around the state and around the country to appear in court. And I think we're going to see a lot more video conferencing. It's efficient. And it works just as well as, for the most part, as showing up in a courtroom. Number two, I think there'll be a lot less paper floating around. I mean, we've all been dealing with emails over the last 20 years or so, but I think we're going to stop dealing with the production of paper. Everything is going to be done electronically. We're going to be filing, as many courts accept now, file papers, file appeals, file motions electronically. That's never going to change. You know what's also not going to what's going to change as well? Big offices. I think the day of the large corner office may come to an end. I think that lawyers will need less space for conferences, less space for less time in big offices. And you're going to see a consolidation of office space, which will be a cost savings to law firms going forward. I think we'll have fewer people working in offices. I think a lot of law offices have laid off people, support staff and attorneys alike, and I'm afraid that in some cases, some of those folks will never be hired back again because we'll learn to deal with fewer people and more efficiency.
Well, Dan, those are great insights. Some of it hard to listen to, but I appreciate you bringing the reality of how firms are adapting and responding to COVID-19 to the fore. And I thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for speaking with me.